Thank you for listening to Return to Roots Mil2Vet Resource Podcast, where we document our shared experiences, stories, and transitioning and reintegrating from the military to the community. For more information, go to mil2vet.com. If you have little ears, ensure you listen to the content before you allow them to listen. And if you are in crisis and homelessness, suicide ideations, or incarceration, dial 211 Courage to call for assistance. Now, stand by for the sound of freedom.
So first, let me introduce this little guy right here. Chris knows who he is. He's famous, internet famous. This is my dog that I got, Pietro, before I retired. And then the other one, she's around here somewhere, probably doing something she should not be doing because I'm occupied. But okay, so back to me. So I did 20. Name is Luther Carter. I did 23 years in the Navy. Joined in 1998. Before that, I had graduated high school. I was 20 years old when I graduated. So when I tell you life was happening to me as a teenager, as a child, nothing about my childhood or my teenagehood was conducive to, you being able to go to school and really focus on getting an education. So long story short, I've got, graduated high school at the age of 20, super embarrassed, having to walk across the stage as a grown man to get your diploma with a bunch of, 17 and 18-year-olds. But hey, I was just glad that was over. But I also knew that if I didn't make a decision about my life, that it was going to be over. And I think one of the things that catapulted me into, making the decision to join the Navy is the little friends that I did have. They were moving on. When they graduated high school, they were moving on. So me, just that kind of made me think, okay, they're all gone. I'm not going to have nothing here. This job at McDonald's is not it. Because I see what it does to people who have been here for 5 to 10 years. And what I mean by people who have not moved up. So, cause don't get me wrong, I have some great friends who, started at McDonald's and they are managers, they're district managers and they're doing great things that I still keep in touch with. I'm not talking about them. So long story short, joined the Navy. And then, just like you, it's like, 1 minute you're like, yeah, I'm going to make a career. And then the next minute you decide to re-enlist. And then you say, oh, I'm getting out after this. And then, next, 10 years just pops up. And then you're like, okay, I've already been in this, this relationship for 10 years. Might as well just see it through. But so that's pretty much me in a nutshell. So I'll just kind of just pause there because I would like to talk about a little bit about my education journey because it was not intentional. It was not intentional. Me becoming Dr. Carter was not on the list of the to-do list. The only thing that was on my to-do list while I was in the Navy was survive. That was the only thing that was on the list. So survive, and that's it. So the education was not on the to-do list ever. It was not even a thing to think about because, when you graduate high school at the age of 20, you'd probably, you think, hey, maybe college is not for me. So, yeah.
Yeah, that must have been pretty hard to graduate like that. And I understand being in an environment where people around you just stay down all the time. And brother, my recruiter, Alvin Lewis, who I talk to still to this day, he's one of the biggest influences that helped me course correct and become the man I am today because that guy straight up saved me from probably ending up homeless bum.
Yeah.
Straight up.
Yeah. So, my career in the Navy, I mean, I was a pretty good AZ2. I'm just gonna just put it out there.
I think you had some competition, bro.
I was, because I'll put it to you like this: when my time when I started my career out at Oceana, right? So jet noise, F-14s, F-18s all day long. Then I went to AMD Norfolk. I did okay there, but I think I spent too much time fighting with my peers than I did anything else. I don't know if you know Ethan Clark, but shout out to Ethan Clark's family. He was an AZC, passed away a couple of weeks ago to cancer. So we knew each other as AZ2s, and so. Anyway, we started my career out on East Coast, but then I got these so-called badass orders to VQ2 in Rota, Spain. So I just knew I was about to live my best life until I came in one day. And I had heard rumors that in a couple of years from the time that I plant my roots in Spain, that they were going to do a home port change to Whitby. So I was like, okay, that's not bad, Man, please. I walked in one day and my LPO, who is a master chief now, Jerome Polk, said, Carter, I got some good news. And I said, what is the good news? He said, you're not going to have to worry about traveling overseas. All you have to do is travel to Whitby. And I was like, how the F is that good news? There's nothing good about that. So long story short, I get to Whitby, complete culture shock. Okay. All right. It was a complete culture shock, but it forced me to be able to relate and get along with people that are not like me, that don't think like me and don't look like me. So, I learned to appreciate the Pac Northwest. But that's where I thrived as an AZ2. Still couldn't make work first class for shit, but as far as learning my job, that's where I thrived and became the superstar. And thankfully, out of that tour, you know how it is, you need as many EPs as you can to make AZ1. So when I got to San Diego, long story short, took the first class exam. I was on transfer leave, and thankfully I was communicating with my sponsor and shit. Because what I did not know is that that just because you're on PCS, that doesn't constitute you taking a late exam, which is absurd to me, but whatever. So I had thankfully I put my uniform on, went to that cold gym, that warehouse gym that they had at the time, took the exam there, and then they didn't have all of that sheet, that's how long I've been out. I don't even know the name of the forms anymore. But they had the sheet that didn't have my numbers on there, but I had all my evals. So the lady put
Scantron form.
No, but it's like the thing with I guess it's called our performing average.
Oh, yeah. It's like the main sheet that.
Yeah. So I had my evals with me, all 3 EPs, and that put me at a 4.0, and that's kind of what did it. So. But let me backtrack. When I was in Whidbey Island, that's when I kind of saw how, before, there was this myth that as long as you're in the Navy, you're kind of protected from the world's economy, but you remember perform to serve, right? And that's when I first saw people getting their asses kicked out the Navy for nothing, just for breathing. Just, it's like, turning the damn Powerball and your name on it. Because that's pretty much what, people can say what they want about perform to serve. That's pretty much what it was. It was a fucking lottery to decide who was going to stay in the Navy and who won. I don't give a shit what they say in Washington, D.C. That's exactly what it was. But anyways, that was a wake-up call for me, because I saw people getting kicked out from the Navy. And then at the time, as an AZ2 or an AD2, what do you really have that's going to transfer in the civilian sector? If all you have is a high school diploma. So that was like my wake-up call. As soon as I got to San Diego, that's when the education thing started. And I remember taking English comp, and I remember just being so scared shitless, because, I had my last experience in school was as a 24-year-old high school graduate. And long story short, got a B. I think it was the first B that I ever got that wasn't home ec or didn't require me to dress out. And then, I finished the class in the A, and then that just kind of that's when the self-efficacy increased. So one class went to two classes went to three classes. Me just getting an associate's degree went to, okay, maybe I can do the bachelor's degree. You know what? I got enough time on the books here in shore duty. Let me get this master's degree knocked out. So it just kind of just kept going on. And then I run into, and then there's this pamphlet for a doctorate in education with human resources, which what I didn't even get, but I already knew what the fuck I wanted to do. That being there, being in, going to school, it kind of gave me the ideal that I don't need to hang on to it.
Yeah, man. I like what you mentioned, performed to serve PTS. That was crazy because they were literally kicking out, like they would kick out anybody for just like stepping the wrong way, but then they were also kicking out the all-stars, the number ones. They were kicking out
there was no rationale. And
Yeah.
then the thing that got me, okay, ERB happened, but then as soon as ERB, you're talking about you're doing this force correction stuff, but then you're sending out these messages, these naval messages that, hey, we're going to give you a stipend if you terminate your shore duty early. It's like, okay, you just kicked out 3,000 sailors. Go get those 3,000 sailors back that you kicked out and send them to sea.
Exactly.
So
man.
that was my biggest frustration with that whole process.
That process right there, like that was just like so crazy. The only reason why I survived was because I made AZ1 on that cycle.
Same here.
Oh,
So
shit.
it's funny because I was kicked out. I was kicked out. I was already on terminal leave. I was already had my job. I was contractor with Sikorsky. I was stationed in Key West when that happened. And then I picked up, and then I had to wait 3 months for all the paperwork to get submitted for me to be able to stay in and be able to remain. And that was, the whole process and everything. So it was really fun. I was part of that.
Oh, wow. That's crazy. Yeah. I mean, it was so stressful. So I had extended as long as I could, to kind of, avoid the whole, re-enlistment request and all of that, submitted because, you get so many extensions. So I used up all my extension. I was extended for 3 years. So like when I got the orders to California, I was like, I'll extend for 3 to 4 years versus doing in the re-enlistment, just so I can avoid that perform to serve. But then I remember getting the perform to serve application approved, and then it was like, okay, ERB. But about that time, I was like maybe 6 months shy away from finishing my bachelor's. So I was like, you know what, if the axe falls, so be it. I did what I was supposed to do to prepare for this day. If this day came, that, watching what happened with perform to serve is what catapulted me into my education, my desire to pursue education. Because I knew if I would have gotten the boot as an AZ2, I'd have been probably, up here at Five Guys, making some double cheeseburgers. No, I wouldn't have been doing that. I would probably have started out GS. I mean, the journey would have been hard, but I would have survived.
Yeah, man. No, that was insane, man. So, so when did you get your doctorate? When did you actually finish it?
So when you remember when we missed each other completely. I got to the Nimitz, and I think you had just transferred, and I remember hearing a little bit about your story that you wanted in all your heart to make it on the Nimitz. With Team Awesome is, I guess, what it was called.
It actually was. That's actually what we called ourselves.
Yeah, Team Awesome. And trust me, I remember Team Awesome because Adam Arnstein's a Master Chief now.
Yeah. Yep.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
So and it was great. And I And I enjoyed being there because the energy was a complete different from what I had experienced in my last command. But so I had only heard of you by name, right? Chris Elder, Chris Elder, Chris Elder. I was like, when I got to the Nimitz, the goal was to just, I wanted to make Singing, but at that point I was just like, I just need to survive this aircraft tour, and whatever.
Yes.
But when I got to shore duty is when I started my doctorate. So when I got back to California in 2018 is when I started working on it. And originally I was going to go to Brandman because that was like the first time that I had ever heard of getting a doctorate was at Brandman University, but their classes started so late. I had got to San Diego in January and they weren't offering classes until April. And I'm like, that's too damn long because, at that time I was thinking, okay, I'm going to go back to sea and make, if I make Sing Chief, I'll make Master Chief or whatever. But no, but I started in 2018 and then finished during the pandemic when it was supposed to end the first time. The first time it was supposed to end. And so that's, so that was the first, you remember when they were supposedly we're going to open everything up and they was like, no, somebody got the sniffles. We got to close everything down again. So long story short, I remember this vividly because it's probably, for me, COVID was still a good year for me because we teleworked. That was the first time in naval history that, service members on shore duty were able to work from home. So I multitasked, okay? I did what any other sailor does, right? Utilize their free time to the fullest. So long story short, I, worked on my doctorate, made sure that I gave my bosses what they needed for their job. But I closed on my house in October. And then like 2 weeks after I closed is when I defended my dissertation. And this was in November 2020. And so I still had like a year left on my contract with the Navy. So I was actually a full doctor. And what was cool was like, I wasn't requiring anybody to call me Dr. Carter at work, obviously, but it was really cool to see my brothers and sisters be like, what up, Doc? What up, Doc? The sailors knew not to call me no Doc. It's still Senior Chief. But, everybody else was like, the people in the mess were really supportive of, and they were like, hey, what up, Doc? So I started becoming Doc, in my last year. And it was pretty cool. It was pretty cool. I couldn't complain. I had no complaints at all. Even my boss, lieutenant commander that sat across from me, he was like, when you get your doctorate in the frame, you need to bring it to work and hang it behind you.
Was that Martin?
No, that was not Martinson. He was cool, but it was his name was Lieutenant Commander. His name Commander Keith, James Keith, and so he was the one that said you need to bring it and put it behind you and hang it up at work. He said because this is a big deal. And I remember his wife made me a cake and everything, so it was really cool.
Well, it sounded like you had a good one, man. There's some great ones out there, man. Some great.
You talking about O's?
Yeah, great commanders, great.
Oh yeah, 100%. And one of the things, and this is something that I never liked about the season, right? And I tried to deter it, during my season, is this is not the time to villainize officers and make them seem like they're just this thorn in our side. Because I used to tell, Chief Selects the truth. I said the people that's going to give you the hardest problem when it comes to doing your job are these folks that are, right now telling you to trust the mess. I said the Divo and the department head is the least of your worries.
I mean, in some instances, I think there's outliers in every realm.
Oh yeah, 100%, 100%. But I just, one of the things I always just try to teach selects that, they say don't drink the Kool-Aid, right?
Yeah.
Understand that these people that are hoorahing right now, they're still people with flaws. These are still people with flaws, right? They're not infallible. So you need to be able to understand that moving forward. And don't walk into your work center thinking that you are just going to go put the lieutenant in his corner and tell him to just type. I say you will get crushed and ate alive if you do that. You need to create a partnership. And I think that's one of the things that we failed to do in the mess is to teach new chiefs how to work in partnership with your LDO or your ensign, because if you want to really know why why you have these captains and these commanders around here wanting to put it to a chief every chance they get, is because they was treated horribly by them when they were ensigns.
Well, it's just like any kind of leader that, that's why we're considered leaders of leaders. We're supposed to be in them, mentoring them from a different perspective than what they're normally used to getting. Usually they're used to getting mentorship from down, you know what I'm saying? But we're right there, right next to them, underneath them, bringing them up, pushing them up to where they, and it's, sometimes you're not going to have to do much, but sometimes you do have to have the ability to convey a lesson without it being disrespectful.
Right.
You know what I'm trying to say?
100%. Yeah. And I think I think for us it's a little different, because I think we worked with LDOs and warrants that were either prior chiefs or prior first classes. And, either way, you're going to have some challenges there, because versus, someone that just came straight out of school, out of the Naval Academy. We don't, on the aviation side, we don't get that unless they're pilots, and half the time they're so busy flying, and really, especially in our rate, right? We don't deal a lot with the ensigns, versus the other, chiefs in the squadrons. They may have that pilot that's the, what's the word I'm looking for? That is the divo, hey, this is your little
FNG.
job.
We're going to get the little FNG.
No, we're not going to call them that.
No, that's what their name tags say. It says fun new guy.
Okay. Well, on the carrier, they do on the ship, they do the Georgian bull.
Yeah, the bull. And then,
which is crazy to me. So, like, if they're talking about, how, like, now, I guess with the process now, how when you enter the mess, they no longer do the, hey, very, very, so respectfully, they cut all of that out, right? Because they said that knock that shit off. You're supposed to be training chiefs. All of that foolishness, knock it off. I'm just really surprised that, even in the war room, that they're still having them do the Georgia bull, thing. What's the value in it? But then again, I don't really know anything about the wardroom culture. I really don't. I really don't. So I don't want to really speak on it, but I always just thought that was just, from the outside looking in, I always thought that was
pretty cool. It's got some pretty cool traditions. The bull, if it's done right, the bull is like the shenanigans guy.
Okay.
I'm not sure if you, but the bull is supposed to keep. It's a rite of passage, right? You're the most senior ensign, so you kind of also get to play that card a little bit, and that's kind of, it's fun, but there's a part.
The way I saw it on one of my ships, that I wondered the way and this wasn't the Nimitz. There was actually another ship that I will not mention, out of respect for myself. I just saw the way they just treated their officers and their JOs was just appalling in the wardroom. This mentality that, because you're an ensign, you don't matter until you make lieutenant, And so that's one of the things I just saw with the way they treated the Georgian bull. It was just like, this is disgusting.
Yeah, I really, really loved my opportunities that I had to work with junior officers, because it was kind of like you get a fresh piece of molded clay. You know what the difference between a 01 and a E4 is?
Nothing. One went to college, maybe, and the other one didn't.
Yeah,
and the paycheck.
Or maybe the E4 did go to college.
More,
he just got a degree in psychology, and that's why he's here.
Or the E4 has more experience than the 01. That's the difference between the two of them. Now, maturity wise, they're about on the same level.
Yeah, their brains are still operating, on the same level.
That's funny, man.
So you talked about your education experience. You talked about the reason why you started it, and then you talked about why or what you're doing now, which you're a professor at what university?
So I'm a professor at universities.
Okay.
So yeah. So here's the funny thing. So I started out at Carolina University as an adjunct. That was like my first teaching gig right before I got out, right before I retired. So literally, I got hired in March of 2021, and then started teaching in June, and then like had my ceremony around that same time and all that stuff. And just stayed on as an adjunct. But one of the things I realized was like, okay, this adjunct work is not consistent like I thought it was. So I was like, I need to go get, quote unquote, a real job and make some real money. So that's how I ended up with becoming a contractor for the Navy, which I would not recommend to any service member getting out, because you're too close to the problem.
Right.
Too close to the problem. So you don't know how to detach and just be the person that they just need to color. And so that was like my biggest problem right there. Wasn't trying to be the senior chief. I want to be very clear. I wasn't trying to be a senior chief, but what I was trying to do was apply my skills that I had learned through my education to try to help, these processes, and it just wasn't clicking. And so I was like, I got to go. But long story short, I took on some other adjunct jobs because I needed to build up my curriculum vitae, which is like a resume for college professors and teachers. So I'm building up my curriculum vitae. So I got hired at Alliance. I got hired at SDSU, got hired at National University. And so those were like my four, go-getters, right? Rotation, rotation, rotation. So, when they say, hey, we're good here, we don't need you for this term, something else always opened up. So I had a steady, little source of income that did good because it kept the balance on the American Express down. So, hey, I'm not complaining. But, long story short, again, I want to go back to the original comment I made. After retiring and babysitting for 23 years, I don't want to say babysitting, leading for 23 years, outside and doing things outside the scope of that I feel of a leader should be doing, which is babysitting. I said, I don't want to be in charge of no one. So I purposely would always turn down leadership positions and all that stuff. But nevertheless, the provost at one of the universities I teach at offered me a position to be a dean. And because I am so passionate about this, program and helping people get their PhDs, and I saw a lot of deficiencies in the program, I was like, I had no business complaining anymore if I turned this job down. Right. So I took on the job, and, we're actually starting to see fruition. Unlike, my previous employment, that required me to wear that hat that you have behind you, the changes and processes, implementing change actually happens a lot faster. It's still bureaucratic in some sense, but the communication, at least with my boss, is a little bit more organic than it is when you see in the Navy. So, which is why, a lot of things that the Navy's trying to do right now, they're going to really have a hard time implementing any type of change because there's too much bureaucracy involved. But no, that's how I ended up becoming a dean. It was just, I wasn't even checking for the job. The lady was watching me. She was researching me. She was going in there looking at my student reviews. Even when the students were complaining about how hard I was, she was like, okay, I can read between the lines. They hate him because he's holding them accountable. So, that's what I need. So she was kind of, paying attention to me, and then also how I move my dissertation learners, getting them graduated. So she offered me the position. And so, yeah, I just said, what, let me take a chance. It was actually, when I signed on to be the dean, because it's a small university. So I ended up taking like a $5,000 pay cut a year. So, yeah, but I'm not as stressed. And this is one thing that I would give to you, Yogi, when you get ready to get out. You better choose comfort over money. You better choose comfort over money at this stage in your life. And that's what I choose. And so I took, it was, basically I make $5,000 less a year in this dean position than I did with my Navy contracting job. And it is so worth it. It is so worth it not to wake up and have my supervisor give me a 3-page email vomit of information every day that has nothing to do with me. You know what I mean? That if I express concerns about certain things, that I don't have to deal with any type of toxic pushback. That if this thing cannot be doable, she explains to me, hey, this is why. Like, the best way I can describe my relationship with my provost, my boss, is somewhat of basically of a chief petty officer LPO, like a real chief, not someone that got an ID card with an E7 on it and just happens to have some uniforms in their closet that say chief on it. But an actual real chief, you take the LPO under your wing, you teach them, you show them the right way. When certain things can't be done, you explain to them, point them back to the structure, point them back to the laws. That's what she does. Or in the sense of a Divo relationship, right? Or a Divo chief relationship. So that's kind of how our relationship is, right? Where when I'm talking to her about things and going over things that I would like to do or concerns, she just explains to me, hey, whether we can or can't do this. And then she say, hey, well, let's get on a call. I need to discuss this with you. So I'll give you a perfect example. I had an incident where I had a person was accused of academic dishonesty. And so we went back and forth in emails for a while. And she said, hey, let's talk because I think I can explain this better, or the process. So she just explains to me the processes. So I've been in the position since July, and I do not regret it, not one bit, not one bit, not one bit at all. If anything that I can offer to veterans out there, choose the comfort over the money. Now, I'm not saying, let them pay you pennies, but what I'm saying is, be intentional about the type of job that you pick. Be intentional about what you want to do as far, because here's the thing: when we are in, it's hard to protect our peace. Our peace is at the mercy of what the government's mission is, what the captain's vision is. And it's no fault to them, right? Because we signed up, we raised our right hand, we said, I do solemnly swear to, I can't remember the oath anymore again when I did dad dumb. But we said we volunteer to be told what to do. We volunteer to be inconvenienced. We volunteer that we're gonna get our asses chewed sometimes when shit don't get right. We volunteer that we're going to get these fucking phone calls in the middle of the night where we got to get out of our bed to go deal with some shit. We volunteer for all of that. And so I don't begrudge any of that, experience, right? Because that's what I said I'll fucking do for 23 years every time I sign that piece of paper. But what I'm saying is, now that you're retired, you got to make that mental shift and say, fuck it, I'm going to protect my peace, and no amount of money is worth it. And I'll give you an example, right? There was a gentleman that worked at my job when I was at CNAP. God bless him. I think he retired a captain, went directly into working as a GS employee. And I remember he was probably well in his 70s. Okay, 70s. He had to been in his 70s. And I remember sometimes leaving at 3-4 o'clock, and he's still fucking there, working. And then on some days when I had duty, he was still there. Long story short, he ended up being diagnosed with cancer and was still working and getting treatments. Then, lo and behold, like maybe a few months after he retired, he died. So he pretty much worked until he died. And so if any advice I'll give to a veteran is out there, don't work until you fucking die. So.
Yeah, man. I could totally dig that. Right now I'm in a phase where I'm learning my new job. And there's some times where it's like, man, it's just sometimes where it's like really painful, man, because I'm still kind of learning my new role.
Right.
You know?
Yeah. So let me ask you this. Are you still tied to the Navy in this new role?
Oh, no, man.
Okay. So that's a good thing. So you're doing a hell of a lot better than I did. When I fucking retired. I mean, I went right back to the fucking Navy as a contractor. But okay. So how much is this? Is this a remote job? Or are you going in commuting?
Oh, it's remote. Go in occasionally. It's kind of working at my own schedule, but it's kind of learning. It's essentially like creating my own business.
Okay.
And it's challenging.
Yeah.
And so it's not necessarily that I chose comfort. It's that I chose to do what I've always wanted to do.
Right. And what I mean by comfort, let me elaborate on that, right? A lot of times I see, especially with people who retire as, in the khaki realm, there's some that still want to be able to be in fucking charge, right? They still want to be in charge, and they will lose their minds to make sure that they're still in charge and some type of, being the boss of something. And for me, when I say I chose comfort, I knew I needed a break from people. So let me put some context when I said I chose comfort. I needed a break from people. I needed a break from people. I needed a break from giving people guidance. I needed a break from giving people mentorship. To include people that were working on their dissertations. I had to take a break from that because while I was actually going through my dissertation, I was still helping, bring people along and push them. And so the whole top experience was exhausting, So once I retired, I was like, yeah, I'm not going to, do this consulting thing. I just want to focus on adjuncting. And then do this ready relevant learning thing, with the Navy and just keep it pushing, just keep it pushing. So when I say comfort, I'm just saying I just needed a break from people and their problems.
Yeah.
For example, so like with my job that I have right now, I get, I know that I need to be on campus twice a year for commencement and then to facilitate PhD residency, right? So those are the two times that I'm required to be on campus. But with them, it was like, okay, you have these abrupt, notifications that you need to go facilitate a workshop. I'm like, who does that? And so my supervisor was like, well, it is in your contract of travel. And I said, say less. So I went back to my provost and said, hey, is that position for full-time dean still on the table? Because I want to take it. I will take $5,000 less to have to deal with this.
Yes. What kind of resources did you use while you were transitioning, man?
Okay. So one of my biggest regrets was not taking enough advantage of Navy Cool. That was like my biggest regret right there because I used Navy Cool once, and that was to get my APHR certification, Associate Professional in Human Resources. In retrospect, I should have been taking a certification exam once a year at least. Because Navy Cool was around when I was a second class petty officer. So what the fuck was I thinking? Not taking taking advantage of this certification. This Navy Cool. So that's one resource that I will tell every Navy, every vet. If it's Army Cool, Marine Cool, Air Force Cool, Coast. I don't know. Coast Guard got a cool because it's the Coast Guard. But take advantage of all that free shit that the military is giving you to become certified. Because if I'm not mistaken, with the Navy Cool program, you can test out on a lot of those trade certifications. You can test on all that shit. So like I have a friend, he's an MA. He wants to be a cop when he gets out. And I'm like, well, go on Navy Cool and see what kind of MA, Navy Cool shit that they got going on. And, besides US maps, which I don't really see, which I find interesting about US maps is I don't really see a lot of people putting that shit on their resume. Like,
hey man, I'm a computer operator, man. Computer operator.
So it's funny because
I wish I could be a fly on the wall when the Master Chiefs are sitting the board and they're looking at all our certificates and shit. Like, the fuck it, get it out of here, But no, it's points they have to grade regardless of their personal preference. But no, just taking advantage of the Navy Cool shit. Like I should have had like 20 certifications. Because here's the thing about having a doctorate, okay, and I want to be very clear about this. You know, having a doctorate is good, is great, it's wonderful, but I also believe that employers also look at other shit like, you know, project management, Scrum Master, stuff like that, black belt. So regardless of what your level of education is, get those types of certifications, get the Scrum Master, get the project management, show that you are familiar with agile project management, and stuff like that. And as much as people love to gravitate to PMI, the Project Management Institute, there are actually other associations or institutions out there that will give you a project management certification. So there's the Institute of Project Management, and you can go through DOL Coach for that to get their basic project management certification. There's Star Six Sigma Leadership. They do provide black belt because they're accredited by the Council of Lean Six Sigma. I'm messing these acronyms up right now, but they also provide Scrum Master training. So I tell people all the time, get, even if you don't finish your degree, right? Let's say you got, a few credits left or whatever, or you just getting ready to start. Because some people, realistically, let's be honest, some of our brothers and sisters are in these C intense rates, these C intense ass rates like ABH or, engineering, where they just don't have that time because, there's no shore duty. So they got to go back to C. When you get a fucking breather, you go and you take these, get a project management certification, go get a black belt certification. There are cost efficient certifications out there. Go on Navy Cool and download those forms, fill that out, take the test, because the last thing you want, and this is no disrespect, but you don't want to transition out the military and the only thing you have on your resume is just a high school diploma. You need to avoid that at all costs. So even if you don't have the college degree, black belt. Like I got a friend of mine. He didn't finish the degree when he got out. He didn't even start until now. But he got like an ass ton of certifications, and so that got him in the door. Being a GS employee. So that's one of the things that I would definitely offer, as a resource, is making sure that you are using Navy Cool and every other like certification out there. One of the things I will also say when you go to TAP class, the things that you really, really need to pay attention to, the things that you really, 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 really need to pay attention to is that VA claims. And I want to be very clear about something. There are some people out there that quote unquote will, help you get a rating if you pay them this money and all this other shit. Stay the far away from those folks. I'm gonna be honest with you. I submitted my own claim and I went to a nonprofit organization that worked inside the VA hospital. They worked with paralyzed veterans that monitored my claim. That's it. I didn't hire someone to do some special work or consulting. I went in, screened my own record, highlighted all the stuff between the paper and then what was in Alta, printed out all of that stuff. You can get it highlighted every time I went to the doctor. Every time I went to the doctor, every time I was diagnosed with something, and just uploaded all of that myself. And the only thing this person did who worked for the paralyzed, worked with paralyzed veterans, just monitored when I got my rating. That was it. So if anything, I'll caution any veteran, avoid paying these folks money to do this stuff for you. Because also, if I'm not mistaken, it's also a red flag too. It's a red flag especially if you pay a physician to do and you don't use the VA stuff. So, you're just drawing more unnecessary attention to yourself.
Yeah.
And don't share your ratings too. That's what I also tell people. Keep your rating a secret. It's between you and your family. That is it. Don't be one of those people on these Facebook pages posting 100% like, are you out of your mind? Don't do that. Don't share that, because what your situation is and how you went through the claim process is going to be different. It's different.
Absolutely, man. And one thing that a lot of people haven't heard of, and we promote right here, there's going to be a little code right here whenever our logo doesn't show up in this top right hand corner, and it's called Managing Your Transition Timeline 365. It's an app that helps you track out from 24 months before you get out. And this application essentially takes the same list that the Department of Defense created for your transition, but it puts it into a computer form. And then it'll even tell you a percentage of where you're at in your transition. I'm 70 days out as of the date of this recording, and I'm still only 91% done with my transition, because this thing tracks you after your stuff as well. So there's not that many tools that help service members in their transition, but this transition timeline app, it works.
So you're not completely out yet?
I'm 70 days out, brother. 70 days out. But
so
this
you
right
don't be on terminal.
Oh no, I'm 70 days out, retired, out of the Navy.
Right, but are you currently on terminal right now?
No, I'm collecting a retirement paycheck, bro. I'm retired.
Okay, when you say 70 days out, 70 days out of the Navy. Oh shit, I'm like, the hell?
Even though I'm 70 days out of the Navy, like I'm done.
Okay. Make sure you edit this blonde moment out of this damn podcast, okay?
Hey, Mark.
Edit
Luther
this.
Owes you a beer. Luther owes you a beer.
Edit this part out. Okay.
All right. So 91% even after 70 days of being out of the military. And that's why this whole entire transition isn't done once you get out of the military. It continues even afterwards. So there's a lot of stuff and steps that you have to take. Like you were saying, disability, bro, that's a big one. That thing takes forever. And if you don't do the BDD, give me the acronym, BDD, before discharge. It's like
you talking about all of the uploading the claims and the exams and all of that stuff?
Yeah, before you get out, if you don't take advantage of that BDD program, I think it's benefits before discharge, so that way when day one you hit.
I didn't even do any of that. I just listen. When I was in that window, that 90-day window, wherever the hell you want to call it.
Yeah,
I just started uploading all of my stuff in the claims, and then went to go see the person that was managing my claim, and then started doing my exams, the QVC, whatever you want to call it, exams and all of that stuff. And then just went from there. So again, that's why I'm like, when I hear these people, paying these organizations that help you, it's like, what are you doing? I didn't do none of that.
VSOs VSOs are volunteers. Like I'll say an organization out there that will help you out. DAV. The DAV has free assistance to help.
That's the only thing that I would recommend. So the guy that the guy that helped me out.
So while you're looking that up, let me do a little tangent on DAV. These guys are all volunteers for the most part in DAV, and they will literally help you out. If you're in California, Camp Pendleton, just realize that you're going to be waiting to get that appointment. So you better not wait till that last minute. You have from 6 months, 90 days of getting out that you have a window that you need to do. And I would even double check those days, because it changes. Things change, and they have so many people that they're trying to help out. It's essentially, you go in there, you better be 15 minutes early, wait your exact moment for when they're ready for you. They only get an hour with you. And it's because they are trying to help out all these service members. But if you don't do those steps, then you'll be waiting forever.
Yeah. So this guy, he was actually part of the PVA, and I think that's Paralyzed Veterans. Association, I think it is, but they worked in the VA hospital, so they weren't some, and I never paid them a dime or anything like that. So great guy that helped me out. But the thing about it is, I tell people, one, keep what you get and how much you make to yourself. I would tell that to person, don't even discuss it with other veterans. If they ask you about, okay, how you fill out the claim process, help them in that regard. Yes, tell them, and steer them away from paying someone, but don't ever share your rating with anybody ever, because what happens is, let's say they don't get what they think they deserve, then they start throwing everybody under the bus that supposedly got this percentage for this and this percentage for that. They will sit there and complain and say, well, this person got this and this person got that, so why didn't I get it? And so that's why I caution people, don't discuss your money unless it's with your family. That's the only people that need to know what kind of income, the wife or the husband, that's it.
Yeah, I agree.
Because look, my mother does, like, no one in my family, no one knows how much money I'm taking home, and they don't need to. As far as I'm concerned, they need to know that I'm struggling still. Life is hard. Don't ask me for nothing.
It's just like whenever you win the lottery, right? Everyone comes out of the.
That's one thing you would not. First of all, if I ever buy a scratch off, I'm gonna be in my house by myself. Won't nobody even know I have the lottery ticket. Because I don't need to be getting hit over the head. But no, I mean, as far as the resources, the biggest thing is, as much as I am an advocate for education, I have to understand that not everybody wants to go to college. But what I will tell you is that you need to have something other on your resume other than a high school diploma. So if you don't want to go to college, then you need to think about trade schools, right? And if you the type of person that you ain't good with your hands, you need to have a come to Jesus moment. Like, what's it gonna be? But no, I'm gonna be. So it's funny because I actually was watching this podcast one time, and the guy was saying that parents need to stop sending their children to college because he said AI is going to be taking over a lot of stuff. He said a lot of jobs are going to be replaced with AI, but you can't replace AI with welding. So.
No, you can't.
So.
And we can only use so many. Basket weavers out there. So.
Yeah.
I think we should move on to the saved rounds and alibis. Okay. Do you have anything else before we get into the final round?
No, let's do it.
All right, man. So what kind of content do you think that people who are transitioning should be absorbing?
Well, I think this will be helpful, just candid conversations, because the more people you bring on here, they can share those lessons learned as far as what's happening. And then there's actually a couple of YouTube videos. I can't think of them off the top of my name, but they share about, okay, what constitutes what do you get when you get 100% versus 90% versus 80%? And then they also caution you against, going back to the VA and applying for rating increases. Because, for example, if someone's at 90 and they try to go back for a rating increase, it may actually backfire on you. You may end up going back to 80. So, you got to be careful about that. So I would definitely say this is definitely one that I would say content for transitioning veterans. I will caution, and I'm going to just throw this out there, you agree to disagree, but I would caution veterans who are soon to be retired chief, senior chief, master chief, petty officers to stay off a lot of these CPO pages once they retire. Stay off, detach, from that Navy content, because, and the reason why I say that is because nothing drives me crazy when I watch, retired veterans get mad because of the changes that the Navy are making. It's like it has nothing to do with you anymore. I remember when the military started authorizing ponytails, and you had all of these retired, these quote unquote old salts losing their mind. It's like, it doesn't pertain to you no more. Go fishing, go bowling, go do something civilian like with your life, So as far as content, I'd say just stay away, detach from, any type of military stuff that doesn't really have nothing to do with your well-being in your transition. Let that shit go. Like the background, what you got, Chris, going on, that's cool. What you got going on, Yogi, that's cool. That's tradition, that's heritage, that's you just being proud of what you contribute to the Navy. You know what I mean? But
you know what these all are? These are just memories.
Yeah, 100%. 100%.
These are just memories. Like I could go around and I could talk about the story about how I got.
Right.
Like people are like, how'd you get a SEAL coin? I'm like, well, because I helped the SEAL out.
Right.
Then I could tell a story.
Right.
Or hey, like where did this K-bar come from? I could tell you about my tours in Afghanistan where I carried that K-bar. That K-bar is my service knife.
Yeah.
Like stuff like that. Like. That's stuff that's important to me, but I completely agree with you about detaching yourself from it because, bro, you did it. Congratulations.
Yeah, like I'm not even on the AZ pages no more. I left. I stopped following the AZ pages.
I just muted it. I just muted it.
I left basic mentoring. I left that. I'm like, okay, what's being discussed right now doesn't pertain to me no more. And I am in nowhere, any shape, form, a part of any CPO pages. And I do that for a reason. Because one, in order for me, I don't want to be one of those people like when I was in the Navy, because when I was in the Navy doesn't matter in 2023. It really doesn't in the grand scheme of things. And then plus, I love our brothers and sisters, but sometimes they get a little bit too much on some of these pages. I'm like, y'all talking like y'all about to storm the Capitol. I can't be a part of this right now, so I'm about to leave. But no, content definitely. This podcast to anybody, I think this podcast is very beneficial to people transitioning, that have just transitioned, that are still trying to figure their life out. Because for some of us, it take, for me, I figured it out real quick. I actually figured it out before I retired. For some people, they don't have that luxury, right? Because if you're an AB or you're in engineering, all you're thinking about is just what's in front of you right now, right? So you don't have time to really think about what tomorrow is going to be like, because you got to worry about what's happening today. So I get it if the transition is going to be hard for some of the veterans out there because of the job that they had. I think for us being administrative, it was a little, we got a little wiggle room to be exposed to other things. So I hope I answered that question.
I think you did. So I have a two-parter for you.
Mm-hmm.
What would you do, or what would you say if you could go back in time to that guy that was going to join at 20? What kind of advice would you give him as foreseeing his side in the military?
I would tell them that the adults, the grown people that are taking bets that you're going to fail, they just wasted all their money. They're going to waste their money. You're going to be okay. You're going to have some ups and downs. All of the people telling you ain't going to be shit. You're going to end up getting the last laugh, but don't waste your time going back and addressing the naysayers. Because I will say, people that are waiting for you to fail and thinking for you that are waiting for you to fail, they're watching. So you don't need to tell them shit. So just, keep moving and don't look back. That's what I would tell my 20-year-old self. I would tell my 20-year-old self that you graduating high school at age 20 is not going to be nothing 23 years from now. That is actually going to be a testimony that you can use to encourage other people to do better in their life. Yeah, you're ashamed of this right now. You just kind of want to just keep this a secret and don't really want to tell nobody because you're embarrassed. But trust me, it'll be a testimony that you will be able to share with other people. So that's what I would tell my 20-year-old self is just, you're going to, in a nutshell, you're going to be okay. You're going to be better than okay 23 years from now.
Beautiful. And then I know you kind of addressed it multiple times, but what advice and how early would you give to yourself before getting out? Now, with everything that you know.
Okay, so well, I feel like I did the most important part of before getting out, and that was making sure that I had something other than a high school diploma, right? And then I'm not even talking about the doctorate shit, the bachelor's, and I'll share that with any veteran. You just getting a bachelor's or some type of certification, you good, plus your military experience. So I did that part right there. I would say the other part, just in preparing to get out, is just really, really pay attention to the resume part. Because in the beginning, I was submitting 3-page resumes. Thankfully, there was this thing, it was called Hire Vets or Vets Hires. And there was this lady named Miss Rodriguez, who was super cool. She called me and said, hey, you actually meet the requirements, but I need you to get this resume down to 1 page, sir. So she's the one that explained to me and what I didn't know. And I don't think TAP class paid, really explain this, but there's this thing called ATS. It picks up on keywords. So anytime you submit a resume, you just can't submit a one-all resume. That resume always has to be tweaked to the job description. So you got to make sure like the key things that they're looking for are weaving in that resume. So I would tell any veteran is to start focusing on building that resume, your LinkedIn, all of the things that you have, the skills that you have in the Navy, all those eval bullets, you need to figure out a way to convert those to civilian speak, right? So you're not a chief petty officer. You are a man. You can be either a program manager, organizational development, human resource manager. You are not a chief petty officer. If you look on my LinkedIn right now, and Chris will tell you this, I have everything is, my time in the Navy, I was either in organizational development or human resource management. That is what I have as far as my Navy. Not sailors. Sailors are changed to personnel. All the CPO 365 stuff, that was, if you look on there, the CPO 365, I don't have CPO 365. I said trained mid-level managers on how to assume, in preparation for assuming senior leadership positions. That's how I described my job when I was the phase 1 CPO 365 coordinator. So it's all about changing all of your stuff to civilian speak. Civilian speak. So I tell any chief petty officer when they say, well, I was an AB. No, but you also focused on organizational development. Send me your resume. Watch me work.
Yeah, man. And man, there's so many little bombs that you dropped in there, man. And the ATS part, people are like, oh, how do I figure out what does for example, in the medical field, if you're a corpsman and you're a radiologist, technologist, or something like that, or rad tech, right?
I think it's OneNet. If you go to OneNet, you type in. I think there is a database out there. Lord, forgive me for forgetting this, but there's a database where we can type our rates in there.
Yeah, and
it pulls the civilian equivalents. I just can't think of it for my life right now.
So it's not OneNet. OneNet's the NMCI of Japan. But
are you sure? Let me go on my
it's
iPad Pro.
It's like I think it's like OneSource. I think it's like military.
Oh yeah, or is it ONET?
It might be. It is ONET. It's ONET. Yeah. And and then also you could go to Indeed, and you can look up job descriptions. And then you can take your stuff, and that's where you should be looking for a resume and LinkedIn profile.
Yeah.
Like you're saying, take Indeed and get the job description of that job, because it tells you for every one of them, then that's how you do it. And I'll give you guys a little hint. I cheated a little bit. I used Chat GPT.
Oh, you didn't write no damn papers and submitted them to me. You fine. But I think too, also, when it comes, so when I look at, some of the, transitioning veterans on LinkedIn, and they have their jobs, and it's written, whatever machine is making, and I just be wanting to tell them, like, listen, you need to update this thing, because all you're going to do is, like, any, these job places, they're going to just blow past that. That's how I ended up getting my first, I ended up getting my first teaching gig was through LinkedIn. The person reached out to me. They looked at my profile, but my profile wasn't written up like a Navy profile. It was written up. Everything is civilian speak. So I'll tell any chief, anybody that's a leader in the mess, look at what organizational development is. Organizational development is all about team building, facilitating, solving problems, stuff like that. That's what we do as chiefs, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
We facilitate, we collaborate, we build teams, we, facilitate psychological safety, and we supposed to. So listen, you send any chief to me with they eval bullets, and I can turn those into, some doable civilian organizational development, organizational leadership job bullets.
Yeah.
So I'm about to send you my stuff then.
Okay, yeah, send it. So long story, but you know what though? I wouldn't trade that Chiefs mess in the Nimitz for nothing in the world.
Oh yeah. Yeah.
I wouldn't trade them for nothing in the world. When I tell you, I love them with all my heart. You know what I mean? But that was a challenging tour. But when I started, making my little trips to Seattle, I was like, this city's not the same. This ain't the city I remember. This ain't the city I remember. So I'm actually going there for a friend's birthday party here soon, and I'm actually staying in Pioneer Square. And I'm a little, my anxiety, because I saw the documentary Seattle is Dying.
Oh man. That hits that.
And what's crazy is they're still voting the same type of people in office. That's what's wild. That's what's wild, is they're still voting the same type of people in office. It's even the same thing in Chicago. Those people are pissed in Chicago, but you're still going to vote the same type of folks in office. So it's like, if you don't want this to happen, quit voting for those type of people that don't care about you.
And that's a totally different subject that we.
And listen, now I wonder, already got listen, after he finished editing this thing out, it's gonna be like a 3-minute conversation.
How did you get in the right mindset of transitioning?
So for me, what started it, if you really want to know the truth, the last season the second to last season that I ran the training, because they used to be my shit when I was in the Navy. I don't know if you heard, but I used to run a mean training program during the season. I remember we did this. We merged with the HSM squadrons, and we did the damn thing. It was amazing. But I remember sitting here, and it was like almost 40 of them. They getting pinned, and we were at the cantina. And I said, you know what? What in the F am I doing here? I'm thinking that I still need to stay in the Navy because the Navy needs me. I was like, no. So I went and took my ass back to work, got on NSIPs, and put in my request for Fleet Reserve. And so for me, I think being able to, the mentally being prepared was easy because I made the choice. It wasn't one of these situations where you see a lot of our brothers and sisters, well, if I don't make senior chief this year, I guess I'm going home. If I don't do X, Y, if I don't make 9 this year, I guess I'm going home. So they hang out until the last straw. So for me, I had already mentally prepared myself for this. And having gone to school, worked on my bachelor's and my master's, I had already been exposed to what this degree, kind of jobs this degree is going to get me. So I already always had in the back of my mind knowing what I can do. So, when I did decide to drop and pull the trigger, it wasn't one of these situations where, oh God, my life is going to be over. How am I going to survive? Because I had already been exposed to some, taste of civilian life through my education. So for me, the mental preparation, there's still anxiety. Let me be very fucking clear about that, right? Because, anxiety, like, okay, because I know that if you and I disagree on some shit, Chris, I can go into an office and we can just cuss each other out for a good hour and it be the fuck okay. I know that can't happen in the Navy, or in the civilian sector. That's called creating a hostile environment, and you could get, taken in handcuffs. You know what I mean? Even just for getting in verbal altercations, you can get escorted out of the building. So I just knew, for me, the anxiety of how I, interact with people, because, in the Navy, you can do that shit talking and, stuff, on the civilian sector is kind of very little different, touchy-feely, and I'm not going to say touchy-feely, but, there's too many laws. So just the anxiety of how am I going to interact with civilians? How am I going to interact with people that don't know shit about the Navy, right? And so one of the things that I made sure that I knew, conditioned myself for, was, first and foremost, don't nobody give a shit about you being a senior chief. No one's going to, I already knew that no one's throwing a fucking party for you at your new job. No one's going to say thank you for your service. No one's going to ask you what it was like being a senior chief. None of that's going to happen. So you just got to, I think for me, understanding that no one's not going to give a shit about me being a senior chief was, I think, the one of the best ways you can prepare yourself mentally, because there's actually an article out there, and it's actually by this person, I don't know, actually, by this business owner, and it's titled 10 Reasons I Won't Hire You. And so, or hire veterans. And one of the reasons he had on there was that a lot of veterans, mainly people who are senior leaders, think that they don't have to start over. And so for me, what helped me prepare mentally for this whole evolution was understanding that I'm going to have to start over. Understanding that, it's nice to think that you can command $150,000 to $200,000, but it's not going to really happen. Not going to happen like that. You may just get a job where you're starting out at $83,000, and you need to be okay with that. And you need to manage your money. You need to be able to make sure that you take in and just make it work, make it do what it do. One of the good things, and this goes back to my comment about protecting your peace and your comfort. Thankfully, because we can take an $83,000 job a year, because we do have our VA benefits, we do have our income as retirement that supplements that. So the pressure to get that high, because you got to understand, with more money comes more responsibility. I got a friend that works in corporate America as a chief executive officer, and he doesn't ever sleep. I don't want that kind of life. And I make just about as much money as he does. So I'm rambling now.
No, you're fine. Because that's something that the expectations of people don't know. They think that just because they're going to go, they were something in the military, they expect that they're going to be able to do the same thing in the civilian sector, when in reality, it requires them to do a lot more commitment, different expectations, different realities. You no longer have that team that is there willing to support you.
Yeah,
you have to start all over again. So
I just posted the article in there. He says, and so the number one reason is, he says, you can't or won't accept that you're starting over.
Right.
And that's why I won't hire you. You believe you're unique just because you're a transitioning person that day. So basically, you think you're unique because you're a veteran.
Yeah, I mean, it's true. It's sad, but it's true.
So, it's one of those things. So one of the things I do kind of take offense by what he did say, he's like, you didn't proofread your resume. And I'm like, okay, I need you to stop there. Cause I listen, I just hired a bunch of adjuncts and I had to delete half those resumes because they was like, I don't know how you got a terminal degree. But but there is a lot of good information in this thing. As far as, things that I think that veterans need to know. But a lot of this can be alleviated if they actually pay attention to TAP GPS, believe it or not. And one of the things that kind of irks my soul with a lot of people who are chief petty officers and senior officers in the Navy, they give their junior sailors so much grief about taking time off to go to TAP class or their appointments, but then soon as your ass retire, you want everybody to know that you on the road program. I always found that to be so hypocritical. So hypocritical.
People who are going to be separating should attend TAPS class twice.
Yeah.
At least.
There's just too much information that's literally dumped on you.
Yeah.
At TAPS class or GPS or TRS or whatever it's called nowadays.
Yeah.
And not every single TAPS class is equal to the other one. So if you do take a TAPS class, and let's say you're in California, take the one offered by San Diego, then take the one that's up in Pendleton or Lemoore.
Yeah.
Take two different TAP classes because different contractors that are teaching those classes, different organizations, either Marine family or Navy fleet family or whatever, Army family, Coast Guard family, or whatever space has, Space Force. But go to those other ones, So let's get into the next one, purpose.
Mm-hmm.
What did it take for you to find your purpose?
Oh my goodness. So I will be 100% honest with you. When I retired from the Navy, I really did not have a purpose, per se. I just knew, I knew what my purpose was in the Navy, right? But retiring, it was like, okay, now you need a new purpose because you can't say your purpose is to sailors no more. Your purpose can't be, serving our military and, helping sailors achieve their goals. That's no longer your purpose. So you need a new purpose. So I would say probably for a good 2 years, I didn't really have a purpose. I was working, I was doing stuff, but it didn't have a purpose. So it wasn't until I was at, facilitating my first PhD residency and where it clicked. A lot of people enter the workforce. Not everybody has the luxury of when they graduate high school, to go and, get accepted into university, go to the dorms, live the college life. Some people have to either go straight into the workforce and work, or they going in the military because, that's how they got to get their college money because, they don't want to owe $10,000, $100,000 of student loans. But long story short, not everybody is able to take that path of, going to college and living in the dorm, right? So they got to do it the other way. I can identify with that. I know what it's like to do it the other way. I know what it's like to take the road, go that other route. And so my goal, my purpose is to help adults who have had life happen to them, who have, had to put things on the back burner for family or, for whatever reason, achieve that education goal, even if that education goal is just an associate's degree. How can I help you get a win? What can I do? So for me, my purpose is helping adults achieve their goals and increase that self-efficacy so they know that they can accomplish something. Because some people, a lot of adults, grown people, whether you're a veteran or whether you are a civilian, they think that that moment, a lot of them think that the moment's past. A lot of them think that that moment is past and that they can't never get it back. And I say, bullshit. Because I will tell you at age 30, I thought the moment at 31, I thought the moment to go to college and get an education had passed. And I say this with all humility. I have surprised myself, because I'm telling you, if you'd told 20-year-old Luther that he was going to have a doctorate and be a dean of a university, ain't no way in the world. Ain't no way. Ain't no way. Ain't no way. So, you know, if I can do what I can do, despite all of the screwed upness that, you know, my childhood was, then you can do what you can do to get your goals, you know. So, you know, and I always tell adults that it is not a race. You're not racing the person next to you. You're not racing the person on the life. The only person you are competing with is you. So, you know, that's just my 2 cents on that.
Well, Dr. Carter, aka Luther, we truly appreciate you for having you and coming and sharing your wisdom and being candid about it and being transparent about all the challenges and everything that you did to prepare yourself, and also being able to shed light into the intricacies of wasting your GI Bill just to try to get some kind of, you know, BAH, BAS, and then just
stop that.
Right. So we truly appreciate you. With that, I want to say again, thank you, and you're always welcome in our presence.
Yeah, this is good. This was good.
And the last thing that I would like to ask you is, how can our community reach out to you, especially the ones that are, like you said, following your advice and that are looking into their postgraduates degrees and stuff like that?
So definitely they can reach out to me in that regard. And again, this is one of those things, like if the veteran is just getting started with their just associates, you know, I can be that, you know, that lifeline to just point them in the right direction to where, okay, let's do baby steps here. You know, if you know veterans that are getting ready to retire, they got a year out and all they got is a high school diploma. Okay, we need to stack that resume up with something other than just that high school diploma. So I have a lot of connections and a lot of sources for getting certifications, accelerated certifications, because unfortunately, you know, if you got a year out, you can only do so many Navy cools, right? So I will tell you that, you know, one of the things, start doing plugs for people who are in to take advantage of that Navy cool. I'm telling you, in retrospect, that is like one of my biggest regrets, is not doing the Navy cool stuff early enough.
Perfect.
All right, Mil2Vet family. Hey, you got Dr. Luther here, who went from being 20 years old and just graduating high school to becoming a senior chief petty officer in the Navy, then a doctor, then a dean, and now he is right here in front of you. Rewind back to some of this content, re-listen to it. He dropped a lot of good nuggets out there. It's not all rainbows and unicorns. As you all know, it is your transition. Take charge of it. Mil2Vet,